I think one of the things is reaching out to mentors on LinkedIn, people that are professionals in the work that you want to do. You'd be surprised at how easily it is to connect with them and just say, hey, I'd love to connect with you. I'm in your business, but I'm entry level. I'd love to, if you ever had time for a 15-minute Google Meet or a cup of coffee because we're local, and just give me some advice of what I would do. A lot of YouTubers are doing that right now. They're going out and asking entrepreneurs and successful people, what made you this way? And they're all going to talk about, we grind, we don't, we work a lot, we work on weekends, we go to the office, we do things. I think that's something that I've been encouraging my young people to do. I speak to those young people. We have 145 kids in YLX each year, and they're top students. They're 3.8 to 4.5,000. They have these crazy GPAs, and they're from our best schools, public, private, whatever you can think of, homeschools. We got a lot of great homeschool kids. And I tell them to go meet people. You don't join a group like Leadership Oklahoma City and don't go meet. Harold Hamm's part of Leadership Oklahoma City. He's a billionaire. Why would you not shake his hand and ask him a question?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. In this episode, I continue my conversation with Matt Thompson. If you haven't heard part one, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to part one as we make references to what we talked about in that episode in this conversation. But in this episode, we talk about companies ghosting candidates, a topic that all of us have had to deal with. We talk about companies reposting jobs and how that happens. We talk about bogus jobs that get posted. And I share a story about my company page that I created on LinkedIn and someone posting a job for the company that does not exist. Then we get to talking about job trends, what he's seeing in the market, how he thinks you should go about finding these jobs. It is a great conversation, and I'm really excited for you to hear it. So without further ado, here is the rest of my conversation with Matt Thompson. It's so crazy to think, you talk to my parents are older than you, but talking about in the 80s and literally walking resumes from company to company and what that was like and having to go through that situation to now you've got all these people. And it seems like the thing that's getting lost a lot in a lot of this is in a system like that. I heard you say so that you can follow up. Because the thing that's getting lost in a lot of these people, and what I see a lot on LinkedIn when people are sharing their experiences, is I'm hearing nothing. So it's a guessing game. So I'm not even hearing that they didn't choose me. So now the systems aren't even rejecting people. It's just ghosting them.
Yes.
And the amount of uncertainty that's there. So the ability to be able to follow up and hopefully get an answer, which may be generic, but at least you got an answer of, yeah, we didn't move from you, even though what it seems like now, silence is an answer. So if you don't hear anything, that is your answer. You didn't go. They'll get a hold of you if they picked you, and it'll probably be pretty quick. But not only that, but when you look at the unemployment and the way that that's structured, and you have to prove that you've had at least 2 job searches a week, and then they say you've got to hold on to that for, I think they said 5 to 7 years, I think is what they told me, because you could get audited in 5 years to see if you took advantage of the system or something like that. So something like this that's tracking every single one of these is great to have as your database of, yes, I did go out and search for all these jobs and it just didn't have any luck,
One, thank you for talking about your parents being older than me. I know I'm old. You're making me feel better all of a sudden.
Oh, you're a young buck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you bring up a great legal point, right? Because I can tell you internally, the UE claims obviously have shot up over the last 3 years. Part of the HR process in many cases is just to let it happen, let people get their, but there are times when HR will push back in a company and get on a call with the unemployment person and the unemployed person and the unemployment professional from the state of Oklahoma or wherever that state is, and try to combat that, to refuse that, say you were terminated or whatever. And I'm not saying all that's right or wrong, but it happens. And that tracker is very important for that legal reason, and for the fact that so many people have maxed out their benefits over the last 2 years. And starting in 22, when the job crunch really started happening, and companies were still floundering around COVID and what to do and how to bring people in and who to keep, and sales were down for everybody, that tracking became very relevant. And when you have this great automated documentation of time, date, and stamp to the minute,
Mm-hmm.
which that tracker does. Great point. The ghosting thing is really fun to talk about. I say it's really fun to talk about because it's literally every day. Every day on LinkedIn, we can see a post about how come I never hear about this? We talk about all the automation of the function. It is so easy to turn on an auto rejection letter in an ATS system. It is like it's a built-in function. There was a time when maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when legality or litigation lawsuits started preventing that as well. 7 or 8 years ago, we stopped checking references, and we'd go to a company called theworknumber.com and get name, rank, and serial number, time, date, payroll first day, payroll last day, because people were afraid of getting sued for giving references. People are also afraid to reject in the last couple of years because discrimination claims have shot through the roof, even though we've had a lot of changes in how people are measured on that. I just saw 3 posts, and I joked about my age earlier, but you're seeing a lot more posts recently on LinkedIn about age discrimination and how that's happening, because there's a big population of Gen X and Boomer workers that are struggling to find work because of whatever reason. So the ghosting thing is very important. There are a couple of companies out there that literally tell you when you apply and you get your email that, hey, you've applied successfully. Thank you for your interest. We will call you if we're interested. And that's it. And that's their excuse to ghost, right? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
If they call you, then good, you're good to go. If they don't call you, then they weren't interested in the first place. And eventually the job will get filled. Everybody will get an auto letter. And that's why if anybody's watching and they've seen this message come across 10 months later, and I know you have,
Oh yeah,
because I've had to fix these in companies where people the recruiters don't close the job. Now that's an internal budgeting headcount issue that I could get into in a whole other business acumen conversation, where hiring managers will keep jobs open so they can keep it in their budget so they can have it for next year. And that's when they'll actually hire the person.
mm-hmm.
And that's when you're talking about dummy jobs, which we haven't even got into yet, jobs that are posted out there and repost on LinkedIn all the time. And anybody out there who has seen it, where they've seen a job reposted a day ago, reposted a week ago, and you see another 1,000 applications in it. Why is it out there? Well, there's an automation in the system, in an ATS system or applicant tracking system, that feeds the jobs to job boards. And if the job doesn't close in the system, it keeps reposting it. So we're seeing a bunch of unfillable jobs out there, and people are wasting their time applying to it. Mm-hmm. Is that something you've talked about to somebody?
Well, I haven't yet, but I'm glad that you did. That was going to be my next point. And I can say that you also have to be real careful inside of LinkedIn, because when I created the company page for this podcast, I didn't realize when I did that I had to restrict the email address that could post a job. And within a day, someone from India, I think it was, posted a bogus job in my company page. And even when I got with LinkedIn and said, hey, this is fraudulent, this is not, I'm the only person in this company, and I didn't post this. This is a fake job from a fake profile. When I went at the profile, there was nothing in it. It was a person's name, where they were from, and that was it. And yet LinkedIn won't take it down. So it's still sitting out there. And there's like, at the time when I looked at it, there was 15 people that had applied to this job that's totally fraudulent. it's not existent. And I tried. I said, I put on my company page, like, this is a fake job. This is not from me. This is some guy who was able to do it, but I can't take it down
Yeah.
because I didn't put it in. So people really need to look into that. But let's talk about those job openings. I mean, if I came to you right now and said, you've mentioned the networking and getting in front of people and having coffee and trying to have all of face-to-face interactions, which is lost a lot of times with younger generations because so much is digital and you talk so much on social media. But what would be your advice? I mean, you've got LinkedIn, you've got all these other job boards, you've got all these things, but what would you, if I came to you and said, tell me what is my best chance of getting a job, where would we go?
Yeah.
What would be your advice there?
Well, it's interesting. So it's gotten really guerrilla level, and we saw this in the 80s and 90s where people would, especially during the tech boom. Let me jump into that, like the early 2000s when you literally had Facebook driving by with a digital signboard to Twitter's offices saying, "We'll hire you for $20,000 more," or whatever, and they would get that competitive. I think it's you just talked about it being lost. I think one of the things is reaching out to mentors on LinkedIn, people that are professionals in the work that you want to do. You'd be surprised at how easily it is to connect with them and just say, "Hey, I'd love to connect with you. I'm in your business, but I'm entry level. I'd love to, if you ever had time for a 15-minute Google Meet or a cup of coffee because we're local, and just give me some advice of what I would do." A lot of YouTubers are doing that right now. They're going out and asking entrepreneurs and successful people, what made you this way?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all going to talk about, we grind, we don't, we work a lot, we work on weekends, we go to the office, we do things. I think that's something that I've been encouraging my young people to do. I speak to those young people. We have 145 kids in YLX each year, and they're top students. They're 3.8 to 5,000. They have these crazy GPAs, and they're from our best schools, public, private, charter, whatever you can think of, homeschools. We got a lot of great homeschool kids. And I tell them to go meet people. You don't join a group like Leadership Oklahoma City and don't go meet. Harold Hamm's part of Leadership Oklahoma City. He's a billionaire. Why would you not shake his hand and ask him a question? You have the ability. There are a lot of leaders out there that are successful of every background you can think of that will meet with you and talk with you about this stuff. I do it all the time. I coached somebody last Friday, like I told you. It was through a friend in the HR world, said, "Hey, can you talk to this guy? He hasn't looked for a job in 15 years. And I'm like, that's a perfect person for me to spend 30 minutes with and go over the basics of what to do and help them maximize the context they already have. So I think no matter what age level you are, and I know I was talking about entry level a minute ago, I don't care if you're 40, 50, 60, 30, and I'll hit every decade in there. You should be able to reach out to people. Like, you're a professional in the PMP world. That's a great network. Sherry, my neighbor, was the president, right? She will talk to anybody. April, who does the same role at Continental Resources, Delisi, one of our big privately held companies. She will talk to people. She owns her own business now outside of her work. So now she is an entrepreneur. We talked about side gigs earlier. She's an entrepreneur with a couple of people from the project management world. They're people that will reach out. So I think you need to do that. I think you need to go back and revisit your LinkedIn profile and remember that posts matter, and you may not connect with everybody because your posts don't agree with them, or maybe you're commenting on their post and just saying, yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that existed. I mean, there's so many ways to interact from that perspective. So that first tier is that I'm going to get personal with some people. I'm going to connect with them, even though they don't know who I am, but they're going to be nice enough to connect out with me. And there's more people that will do that than none. Yes, everybody is not going to connect with you, but the ones who do, they're going to offer you some value, and you're going to be able to offer that back to them. So I think that's good. The paying it forward piece. I think also we were talking about the networking piece. Your organizations, we talked about certifications and how they're not as important, but the meetings can be. And that's, again, back to going to a meeting for the professional level of whatever you're in. There's tons of financial and accounting. There's IT at the yin yang for a ton of different divisions of IT. There's supply chain groups. There's manufacturing groups. There's product manager groups. I mean, I could go on. You need to find your organization, connect with them on LinkedIn, then connect with them in your local area. If there's, like, we're in Oklahoma City, if we don't have a branch here, but it's in Tulsa, I'm going to drive up to one of their lunch meetings. I'm going to pay the $25. I'm going to go shake hands with some people and let them know that I'm out in the world. I'm jumping through a few things there, but I want to give you a chance to respond to any of that.
No, I love that. I think it's something that is getting overlooked because I think it's people are just assuming that people aren't going to have time or they're not going to want to talk to you, and there's going to be that. You're going to have people that say, "No, I don't have the time to do that," or whatever, or just don't respond to you. But occasionally you will have somebody that is willing to help, and so that's important. But I think as we kind of start to land this plane a little bit for this one, because I mean, I'd have you back every week if I could. Let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the trends of the market. Like, what are you seeing? Where are jobs heading? Obviously, people can be concerned about AI taking over a lot of jobs, and that's probably coming. I mean, it's gonna happen at some point, but it's not happening yet. But you have some time to figure out where you fit in that realm of where it's coming. Is your job going to be affected? Yes. Okay. Where can I pivot? Where does my skills translate? But what are you seeing in the position trends? And if somebody finds themselves in that position where it looks like they need to pivot and they're not getting any traction applying for what they've been doing. I'm one of those people. I've been doing project management for 15 years. I had a little bit of a success at the beginning, got a couple interviews, got to the final, didn't make it, and now it seems to have dried up a little bit right now. So if it comes down to a point where it looks like I need to pivot, what would be your suggestions with those kind of things?
Well, when I presented this data to the YLX group and the Leadership Oklahoma City group a few months ago, we were talking about the first two buckets, right? So healthcare has come back. Healthcare and nursing for the last 4 or 5 years, for good reason.
Right.
I mean, we saw a huge drop off in people even wanting to be in that industry after COVID. They just didn't even want to be a part of it. But in the teens, the 2010 to 2018 range, nursing jobs of every bucket were huge, and nurses aides and supplementary roles, CNAs, things like that. It's always been a part of my background. At my first firm I worked at, we were doing OBGYN recruiting and then PTs and OTs and all the stuff. Dialysis nursing is very popular. So that healthcare world, if you have a desire to ever have been into it, that's not a bad way to go. Now, you do have to go through a 2-year certification process for most of those roles, and in a few cases 4 years, but they can be very lucrative. I mean, they can pay 60 to 110, 120. That's not a bad role. That's a very accommodating salary range for a lot of people. We obviously can jump right into the AI ML or the AI world. And where I coach people, and this is what I've done in the energy sector, when I take engineers from energy when the downturns happen and I put them in manufacturing, you find a derivative of that role. So if you're a supply chain professional and AI is starting to automate the supply chain function, the way to build an RFP and automate an RFP build, which they're doing, but you can do that in Chat GPT, but the actual enterprise systems are doing that. Go work for one of them. You're a supply chain professional. You probably got a degree and certifications and experience. Go work inside of that. I tell teachers all the time, go work for learning management system companies. A lot of teachers didn't want to work in teaching and education after COVID, so they were migrating and pivoting into learning management tools. We have a company in local called Teaching Textbooks. They automate mathematics, English, and history lessons into online tools for kids, so they can do that. And they use them in schools, public, private, on all that. So that's a way to pivot. So when you're talking about the AI world, anything that's being automated in AI, they have to have professionals that know the process to even put it in AI, and then add AI functionality to that. They're stacking that inside of that. They're not. So it's part of the automation function of technology enterprise applications. So I think that's an important thing to do. The fourth highest job function that's out there right now for Indeed, and it has been, and Indeed's actually a powerful tool. I haven't brought them out a lot, but I hated them in the 2008 to 2014 era, then grew to love them since then because they just do a better job now. But the trades, going into the trades business, there are a lot of people, and you're seeing it on LinkedIn. If you see it on LinkedIn, you know it's real. But people that have an acumen for trade skills and working with their hands and doing hard things like that, and they are hard things. They're definitely different than white collar jobs, but they can go into that world. They can work inside that world. The HVAC companies are going to explode. They don't even have enough people to do the work, but they do have a corporate support group. So if you're in a corporate support role in this business, well, go look for the businesses that are growing: the HVAC, the electrical industry, the plumbing and similar industries. We have a number of companies right here in Oklahoma City, the Climate Control Group, and they are ancillary companies inside of multiple businesses in climate control. We have environmental systems in aviation and aeronautics, and they do the HVAC for the Black Hawk helicopter. So you've got to be thinking outside of your sweet spot realm that you're always in, and find the industries that are automating or expanding in that piece. The best way to do that is to go in Indeed and see how many jobs are open in that field, and then you start trying to pivot. Some of the pivots will not be easy. I'm not going to claim that, because you may have to relearn a chunk of things. But if you have behavioral soft skills, and you were talking about this earlier in our other conversation, that I can play well with others, that I can deal with conflict resolution. When I interview at the executive level, I'm not interviewing if a guy can build a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking, can they manage the person who builds the spreadsheets? Can they manage a P&L? Can they read a P&L and understand where their costs are, and understand how to speak up the chain to the CFO and CEO about how I'm spending your money? So I think that's where the pivoting, you've got to research these industries. You've got to understand that you're going to have to do it. And many people are going to pivot or find that derivative. And we talked about side gigs, and you have skills beyond running a project. But running a project involves a lot of skills that leaders do and business owners do. Why would you not just do that for yourself? I'm a big fan of that. I've owned my own businesses, and sometimes it's fun and sometimes it's not fun. And I can tell you this last year, zero. There's been zero fun in the Thompson household right here. But I think that's something people have to understand, and they need to understand it's going to be a bit of a sacrifice. I do think this year's going to get better, and that's just because I think the administration is different and it's more business focused. That's not political in any way. That's just literally, some people are more business focused and business growth, and companies are gonna expand on that. But I don't think that'll hit until Q3 or 4, where we'll really see the funness of that. So I hope that answers that a little bit, and just try to how to maybe do some of that work.
No, it definitely does, and it's certainly relevant in like the area that we're in here in Oklahoma City. Obviously, we're heavy in oil and gas, and we're heavy in now aviation and different things. And I certainly expected that specifically in the oil and gas industry, there was going to be so much excitement, and there is, but I expected it to be, this month in January. I didn't expect it to be, a couple quarters down the road. That makes sense. But for some reason in my head, I thought, oh, they're going to start getting really excited because they're wanting to open it back up and they're wanting to reduce regulations and all of those things. And so they were going to do that. So it's always good to have that in our mind. And I know that there are tools. The first guest that we had, Travis Scott, or I may have butchered his name, but he laid out a tool that's put on by, I think, the federal government, where you can put in your skills that you do, what you've done, what you're proficient in, all of these things, and it can spit out a list of positions that have similar skills that you can start to think of and say, oh, well, maybe I'm a program manager, or I'm a product manager, or something like that. At the end of the day, like, my wife was worried about that for a little bit, because she was what she felt like was very specialized in oil and gas for data within oil and gas. And I remember having conversations with her, and I said, at the end of the day, outside of oil and gas, you're a data analyst, is what you are. You analyze the data, you organize it, you put it in that case, they were making maps, but they were just organizing data and putting it in spots where everybody could get it. So it's important to think about. But Matt, I've really appreciated this. I want to respect your time. I know we're at that time. But do you have and I want to let you plug your business because I know you're really excited about it. And it's something that a lot of people should think of. The last person that I talked to on Friday was an entrepreneur, and it's something that you should definitely think of. And as you mentioned, don't fall for the false promises of it's only going to take a couple months. You're going to be making lots of money. You're only going to need to spend 2 to 3 hours a week on this. And then it's just going to do it itself. And you'll be on the beach with your family and it's going to make you a ton of money all the time.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important to talk about starting something, thinking about that, and, trying to transfer your skills. So if you have some final words for people, and I do want you to plug what you're doing now because I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and you just triggered something that I should have brought up during the pivot conversation. But a few years ago, the retained search piece really dropped off for me, and I had been pursued by a company to fill a VP of marketing role, and within 3 months, they were asking me to rehab the entire organization of recruiting inside their company. That led to me doing it for the parent company, right? But what I had to do was show them that I had expertise beyond just filling a job, and then I could build technology to help fill the job. And so I spent 3.5 years on a monthly retainer that was honestly, it was super lucrative for me. And I was able to work remote and I built technology for a company. So I had to pivot on my old experience and say, well, yeah, I'm a headhunter. I'm only going to do that. No, they'll pay me to build technology to do headhunting. So why wouldn't I just do that? And then it became the recruitment marketing piece where I'm building all these websites and working with CMS systems and SEO. And now I have 2 apparel brands. One I'm getting ready to pop, Game Day AF, everybody. And then I have Antler Swag, which is just for our Deer Creek School District. But then we have Game Day AF, which is a nationwide brand. I got people wearing it at OU, football players and cheerleaders and all this. And it started with my friend off a whim to bring school spirit back. And now everybody's buying the clothes. Now we're trying to figure out how to expand it nationwide. But I'm taking all that experience that I had in building websites and building SEO and doing advertising spend, and I'm converting that into a whole new business that's going to take care of my family. So that pivoting right there I should have brought that up as a better example of that earlier. But it's about taking the skills that you have and then applying them to other things, and you'll find out that there's a lot more you can do. And we all know that. Everybody who's watching, you know how to do more than one thing. And so just take that and move that and go explore that for an hour. And I guarantee you're going to figure out that, oh man, I might be able to sell myself as this person, program manager, right? Over a program and just roll out some software or whatever. So there's a lot of fun things there. But yeah, my company is Thompson Search Group. I do retained search, and I've done it for all the majors and you can think of in the state of Oklahoma and Fortune list companies. My last 4 searches were all at the director to CEO level or COO level. So I do play in that range a lot. So if you've got a search where you're trying to replace somebody, and sadly that's a lot of what I do, or standing up a whole new division, I've been doing that for companies, significant companies in our state for years, for the bigs. I also obviously do HR technology. So if you're turning on new technology, I can do that as well, whether it's a payroll system, benefit system, or all of the above, and all the way to the applicant tracking system. And then, yeah, I've got Game Day AF getting ready to go live in the next week. I promise I will get you a hoodie to wear or a sweatshirt to wear on your podcast.
Heck yeah.
Because every day is game day in my mind. I was a competitive swimmer, D1 swimmer. I've been nationally ranked as a triathlete. I've made the world's team. That's probably what I'm best at, is being an athlete, but I'm not good enough to get paid for it. like some of our friends, like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes last night. But Game Day AF is a brand that we take across, and we've used it with FCA for Game Day Always Faithful, to Antler Football, to America First, to all these other things that people are using it for. And so getting ready to launch that. And I promise, again, I'm going to get you a flat billed hat since I know you like those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's kind of become that. It's one of those you always hear whenever you become a dad, you kind of get stuck in whatever your fashion was when you last were quote unquote cool. And so back in the day, this is what the fashion was, and now it's just kind of become, I played baseball and this is what you did.
Yeah,
And then
baseball players.
once you get out of the baseball, that never really leaves you. And so you have that. But Matt,
Yeah.
thanks so much. Thanks for all the information you brought here. And I definitely want to have you back because there's so much we've talked about just offline of different things that people need to know. And one of the biggest missions here is you don't know what you don't know. And you may have made assumptions. I know I did. Heck, I was calling the ATS system automated tracking system for all these years. And I didn't know about what recruiting companies do. And I didn't know about what their business model even was. I knew that I didn't have to pay them, but I didn't know what that meant. I
Yeah.
didn't know what they were looking for. I didn't know all of these things. So thank you for helping with this information because people are just spinning their wheels right now, trying everything that they can think of. And maybe they're just spinning their wheels in the wrong direction. And that's what I'm hoping to bring here. So thank you for that. And yeah, I hope to have you back.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. It's important, and we're all trying to help each other right now. I think that's probably the coolest thing is you see people from different segments just trying to share a posting of somebody needing a job, and at that last, they're on their last legs, and we've got a lot of people there right now. So, for all the listeners, watchers of this podcast, don't forget to do that because it'll come back to you. Somebody's going to do that for you. And I tell this to all the people because I never charge for my coaching on this because it's honestly it's the nice thing to do, it's the good thing to do. It takes a little bit of your time and it can save that person's career, it
Yeah.
could save their family, it could save their home. That's where a lot of people are at today. So I think what you're doing is great and I'm glad to support it. And I know the OCHRS Society will support it and that's important. So thank you for everything. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. I want to thank Matt Thompson once again for coming on, giving his time, and sharing his knowledge on where we are in the job market, how to find a new opportunity, and much more. If this is a podcast that has resonated with you, I'm so happy. I'm so glad you're here. If you know someone who is going through a job search, please forward it to them, send this to them, and say, I think this can help you. If you do like this podcast, please go and like it, subscribe to it, write a review. All of that helps me get in front of more people, as the mission of this podcast is to bring free information to help people in their job search. But with that, we'll go ahead and end this episode. I hope you have a great evening and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.